Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's National Organization on Disability webinar. A look inside 2020 Disability Employment Tracker and Leading Disability Employer CEO. Audiocast quality is subject to your equipment, available bandwidth, and internet traffic. If you experience unsatisfactory audio quality, please use the telephone dial-in option provided in your confirmation and reminder emails. If you have dialed in, operator assistance is available by pressing 0#. You can send questions at any time through the Q&A icon located to the left of the presentation screen. Just type your question at the bottom of the pop-up screen and press enter to send it. A question and answer session will follow the presentation. And now I will turn the call over to Felicia Nermson, Managing Director, Employee Services with National Organization on Disability. Please begin.
Thank you so much, Luke. Good afternoon and welcome to NOD's 2020 Disability Employment Tracker Preview and how to utilize the tracker to your best advantage. I'm Felicia Nermson, NOD's Managing Director of Employer Services, and I'm really pleased you could join us today. We have a great presentation for you, and we will also save time at the end to answer all of your questions. So let's get started. Over the next 30 minutes, we will discuss how your company can take the first step to determine your current state of disability and veterans inclusion using the tracker. You'll learn how you can assess your firm's current practices to recruit, onboard, and retain people with disabilities and veterans, identify areas of success, and also opportunities to advance. The 2020 Disability Employment Tracker offers companies a quick, free, and confidential assessment of how your company's employment policies and practices stack up in 5 key inclusion areas plus veterans inclusion using unique benchmarking data. We'll highlight the benefits available to companies that participate in the tracker, provide answers to frequently asked questions we receive when companies are completing the assessment, and we'll have time, as I said, to take questions from participants at the end. Finally, we'll also explore how to use your tracker results to advance disability and veterans inclusion initiatives within your company. For those of you who are new to NOD, here is a quick overview for you. NOD is a nonprofit that promotes the full participation and contributions of America's 57 million people with disabilities in all aspects of life. We focus on increasing employment for people with disabilities by setting the standards for top performance by employers and helping them to achieve these. We have a 35-year track record as a leading authority on disability with a board of committed senior corporate leaders and professional staff with decades of experience working with employers, disability organizations, researchers, as well as policymakers. NOD offers a suite of professional services tailored to meet companies' workforce needs and has helped some of the world's most recognized brands be more competitive in today's global economy by building or enriching their disability inclusion programs. Now I'd like to share just a few key facts with you as to why disability and veterans inclusion matters to corporations today. People with disabilities are the largest diversity group in the country, and approximately 20% of the U.S. population has a disability. Now, of that population, nearly 80% of the 30 million working age Americans, ages 16 to 64, with disabilities are not employed, yet the majority can and want to work. Changes to the U.S. Department of Labor regulations, Section 503, as well as VEVRA, set workforce targets for federal contractors. Now, the disability piece of the Section 503 changes is a workforce target, but with VEVRA, employment of veterans is a requirement for federal contractors. Now, disability inclusion is proven to enhance innovation and increase engagement across the broader workforce, and 87% of consumers would prefer to do business with companies that hire people with disabilities. Now, I'd like to tell you more about the 2020 Disability Employment Tracker. NOD offers a suite of professional services. I'm not sure why. The tracker was developed by the National Organization on Disabilities Employment Experts in partnership with the Viscardi Center, the National Business and Disability Council, with input from corporate leaders. After completing the tracker, you'll receive a benchmarking scorecard measuring your performance in comparison to all companies participating in 2020 across the 5 key inclusion aspects that we'll talk about next, allowing you to identify areas of strengths and opportunities to improve. So far in 2020, we have over 120 companies registered to take the tracker, and in 2019, we had about 210 companies complete the assessment. The tracker is offered every year and is refreshed to reflect the evolving needs of employers and the latest leading practices in disability inclusion, gained through hands-on consulting engagements, working closely with members of NOD's Corporate Leadership Council, as well as policy experts. In addition to refreshing the questions each year, to provide more clarity, we have added questions and answer options on a number of topics: applicant tracking systems, plans for improving disability inclusion practices, self-ID communications campaigns, and veterans hiring. Companies can complete the tracker annually to chart their progress year over year and demonstrate advances gained from launching or expanding disability and veterans inclusions initiatives. And you do see this as part of your tracker scorecard, which we'll show you later. Typically, the tracker is completed by HR and or diversity and inclusion leaders, and usually takes about 2 hours to complete. The 2020 tracker is open now and will close on March 3rd. So if you haven't started, we do want to encourage you to start now. Now here, you can see the 5 categories and the key aspects that are examined as part of the tracker. Some examples of what we look at in each category, for instance, are in climate and culture. We look at things like policies and practices that foster a culture that is inclusive of people with disabilities, focus on the employee, not the disability, and encourage self-identification. For talent sourcing, we look at things like hiring goals. Have you set hiring goals? Local talent pools. Do you understand recruitment practices or have established recruitment practices and trained recruiters and hiring managers designed to eliminate unintended bias? When we look at people practices, we're looking at if you have done your disability training for managers, staff, if you've established mentoring programs, if you include disability inclusion questions as part of performance reviews for managers, also if you have trained your managers and supervisors on how to handle disability issues within performance reviews. We also look at workplace and technology, which is both looking at digital accessibility as well as facilities. And then last but not least, looking at strategies and metrics, which of course is if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. I think I said that for those of you that attended this webinar last year. I said it last year. I'm saying it again this year, and I'll say it for as long as I'm doing this webinar, because it is true. If we do not have strategy and metrics in place, it really is the table stakes that allows us to track our status, audits of current policies, and plans to improve. It really helps us to understand where we're operating from and where we need to go in order to be successful. And then last but not least is our veterans employment. This section is optional. It explores the same 5 areas through a veterans lens and includes, obviously, organizational attitudes and policies and looks at the entire employee life cycle. Now, after signing up for the tracker, you will receive an email that gives you instant access to begin the survey. There are about 80 questions, and the vast majority of questions are yes, no, don't know. There are also follow-up questions that will appear only if you answer yes to the parent question. So you see this in the slide for question number 4. My company tracks the ratio of individuals with disabilities hired to all hires, where if you answer affirmatively, you then are asked to respond to the child question, 4A. If yes, what percentage of new hires within the last year identified as individuals with disabilities? Now, as I said, most participants complete the survey in just a few hours, but it is good to know that you will be asked this type of information while you're completing the tracker, and ensure that you have the appropriate resources to work with in order to receive this information internally. Now, there are a few frequently asked questions we'd like to address here today. The most common question we get is about whether to respond to the survey on behalf of a division or subsidiary or for the parent entity. And the answer is that it's up to you, but the guidance I would offer is that you should think about how you are driving your policies and how you want to use the results. So if you create diversity plans across your firm from the parent level, from headquarters, you should fill out the tracker at that level so that your scorecard is a useful guide. If you have an intent to keep policies by division, then fill out separate tracker surveys for each division, understanding that you should only fill out one tracker per division. Oftentimes, participants reach out to us about question number 22, which my company has a careers landing page specifically for people with disabilities. We are asking whether your company has a dedicated web page encouraging candidates with disabilities to seek careers with your company. This type of page functions broadly as a marketing and communication tool and is typically housed within the main company website, as seen with, say, a web page dedicated to company values or commitment to diversity. This web page may include information about your company's disability-inclusive culture and commitment to disability employment, and or share information on disability awards won, stories of current employees with disabilities, etc. We do find that any time that you can share stories of current employees with disabilities that are successful in your workplace, that definitely acts as a driver for people with disabilities to apply for work within your company. The key is we are looking for something here more broad than having an if you require accommodations, click here button. Right? We want to clearly establish that you are going above and beyond, that it's not just the minimum compliance that you are striving for, that you are really looking to bring this to the next level. We also get inquiries on question number 32A. If yes, recruiting personnel are required to attend annual disability employment training that exceeds 30 minutes in length, and wonder if by offering 30 minutes of general diversity training that includes disability topics would qualify as a yes. The answer is no. We are asking about dedicated annual disability training that's over a half hour. Now, this 30 minutes of disability training could be part of a 2-hour diversity training session, but we're looking for an indication of a dedicated effort to train your recruiters on disability inclusion and specific hiring techniques. Often companies struggle with how to answer a question when the available answers are simply yes, no, or don't know, as they have some instances where the best practice is being enacted and other instances where it is not. Let's take a look at question number 42 to illustrate the issue. My training materials, example, skills building courses, reference guides, your learning management system, etc., are available in accessible formats. Someone completing the tracker from HR may know that their corporate training materials are available in accessible formats, but are unsure if they should answer yes, as some training materials specific to different managers may not be. Generally, we advise companies to answer affirmatively if the majority of practices in your organization conform to the question being asked. So if the majority of your materials are accessible, then you would answer yes to that question. Now, moving on. This year, we refreshed the tracker. As I said, we do look at it every year, but this year we added several new questions in key areas by working with some of our top corporate leadership council members who are outstanding disability inclusion advocates and who have fantastic inclusion practices within their companies. They are known as leaders within this. We also had policymakers and our staff as part of this in the review process. Some of the questions that we added are listed here. We had a total of 17 new questions, which we have not had that many new questions. Since we started the survey, we do, as I said, update the questions, but I would like to just review a few of the new questions that we added, and then if you have any other questions, you certainly can follow up with us directly after the webinar. But some are, my company has a comprehensive disability strategy that includes policies, process, resources, and accountability. My company solicits feedback from employees about disability inclusion efforts. Now, this is one that is really important to understand how your employees feel about the efforts that may be ongoing within your facility and within your workplace. What we have found over the last year, particularly in 2019, we trained over 2,000 employees. And what we saw as a result of the evaluations that we performed while doing disability hiring engagements with specific companies, so many of the employees, close to 98% of those that completed evaluations, and we have a 90% completion rate, thought that not only was the training worthwhile, but they were really happy and excited to be working for a company that was actually going through this process and investing in hiring people with disabilities. At one facility, we had over 140 people that volunteered on the spot to be a buddy for people and a mentor for people that were being hired with disabilities to bring them through the facility and help them to understand really how to navigate the workplace. So really exciting when we can look at and ask the questions of our employees, and it's really important for us to understand how they feel about what we're doing. This is another one. My company has senior leaders who are open about their own disabilities. I just recently spoke at an event last year as well, and this was something that an ERG decided to ask for. They had a Shark Tank type activity within a larger conference, and theirs was to have a senior leader step up and state publicly that they did have a disability, and that then they would continue on with that to attract other senior leaders within the organization to fully disclose that they had disabilities, if in fact that was the case. There are others here that you can see on this slide as well. As I said, we have 17 new questions. I'm certainly not going to go through all of them, but I did want to give you an idea of some of the new questions that we're asking. If we look at the next slide, you will see an example of what a tracker scorecard looks like. So you should expect to receive this in spring 2020, or about 6 to 8 weeks after the March 3rd tracker deadline. Your Disability and Veterans Inclusion Scorecard serves as a snapshot of your company's current disability and veterans performance. For each of the 5 inclusion aspects, NOD provides a numeric score reflecting your company's performance in that inclusion area and a benchmark score showing the average performance of all companies participating in 2020. Use this overview to quickly update senior leaders on where your company stands today and build support for growing or launching initiatives to improve in one or more of the key inclusion aspects. For each key inclusion aspect examined, you'll also find recommended leading practices from NOD's employment experts to help you advance. Next, you will see the tracker scorecard excerpt where a record of your responses is seen year over year. So for companies that enroll, and we do have companies that have been completing the tracker from its inception with us, so they will see this year 7 years of results. For companies re-enrolling, we provide that year-over-year response trend documenting your record of improvement. And then finally, the scorecard will show trends drawn from the aggregate and anonymized data of all participating companies. So not only will you see what your own performance is for each of the questions that were asked, you'll also see at the end, in aggregate, how different companies within different industries are performing, as well as other information. Now, if we move on, we can talk a little bit about how to use your scorecard internally. So you can use the scorecard tear sheet, as I said, to build internal buy-in and support for your disability and veterans inclusion agenda. It is that perfect snapshot for you to see where you are within those 5 key metric areas. And we really help that to identify where you are as far as the National Organizations on Disabilities, Disability Employment Maturity Curve, bringing you through from exploration to maybe you're within the compliance category, you are now in competence, then hopefully bringing that into competitive advantage. And that's what really this scorecard can help you to show that to your own leaders. That we may right now, we may be in the exploration stages, but this is how we're going to get to competitive advantage. Demonstrate your advancement and recognize internal disability and veterans inclusion efforts. Benchmark your performance against your peers to understand how you compare to the competition. Understand critical success factors in disability and veterans employment. So when we say this, understand critical success factors, really what are those policies, process, procedure that are going to help you to get to a higher self-ID rate? That tends to be and will continue to be an issue for companies. We do know that a lot of that and the majority of what our feedback has told us, as well as companies and people who are doing really well, all about trust. How do we build trust? And when you look at the different questions that you're answering around the policies that you're developing, around the team members that are involved, and really the resources that are involved in moving your initiatives forward, really can help you to understand what those critical success factors are for you and how you can help to move them forward by using the information within the scorecard and the additional information that you receive as part of the package. Now, for federal contractors, you can demonstrate that you are taking tangible steps toward your Labor Department employment target. And don't forget to take advantage of the opportunity that you have, because every tracker taker has an opportunity to talk through their results with an NOD staff member. This actually is about 45 minutes that we'll spend on the phone with you to go through your tracker results to help you to understand where you are in relationship to others, as well as where you may have that low-hanging fruit for improvement. Looking at those things that we have seen that are best practices that can be accomplished within as a short-term goal versus medium-range and long-term goals. We know that quick wins are really important when we're looking to build, our senior leadership team's involvement and support for programs like this. You also gain additional value and take deep dive into your tracker data with NOD's Disability Inclusion Executive Briefing. I'm not really going to we're starting to run a little bit low on time, so I'm going to not talk about the executive briefing, but I will go ahead and talk about the fact that by completing the tracker, you do become eligible for the NOD's Leading Disability Employer Seal, which is awarded each September. And all companies that compete for Diversity Inc.'s Top 50 Companies for Diversity must complete the Disability Employment Tracker. So 2 benefits of completing the tracker there as far as being recognized for your effort. If you would like more information about the executive briefing, I'm certainly happy to answer any questions offline. We will provide an email address here shortly. So we have about 5 minutes left, so I really would like to take the time to answer any questions that you might have at this point. And we will go ahead and leave the information here about how to start completing the tracker today at the www.nod.org/tracker, and that the deadline is March 3rd, 2020. So do we have any questions? Okay, well, the slide deck we sent to attendees, we do make the slide deck available to everyone who is registered here. That's an easy one. And again, asking if we can receive it in a PDF or Word of the NOD 2020 tracker questions. Yes, we can do that. If you respond to the email that you see here, tracker@nod.org, we're happy to provide examples of the questions that you'll be asking so that will help with the preparation of completing the tracker. Does NOD provide follow-up to ensure a business is actually doing what they say they are? For example, if they say yes, that their website is accessible, does NOD text the site so their score is actually reflecting truth? Now, this is a really interesting question. Thank you for that. And while the survey is not compliance-driven, and we would not take that next step, excuse me, I'm really hoping for truth in reporting, right? That those companies that are completing the tracker are completing the tracker because they really are interested and they really do see the value of disability inclusion in their workplace. So if they do say that they are doing these things, that they are actually doing them. Now, I can give you an example of companies that may have answered questions and said yes to those questions. And when we have actually gone through the disability tracker with them, and they've taken it to the extra step of scheduling time with us to go through that tracker, we do find that it was just a matter of either misunderstanding the question or not really realizing that, you know what, this person that was completing the tracker at that time didn't have full access to the information. So sometimes the answer can be turned to a no. Other times, and most often than not, companies are answering the questions no, and they should be answering yes. So they do tend to err on the side of caution when they're answering the questions, but that was a good question. Thank you for asking. I do appreciate it. What data from the tracker is publicly available for organizations that don't complete the tracker? Well, that's a good question. Thank you. We release an infographic each year that shows results in aggregate of some of the most popular questions or some of the most and I don't want to say popular, but some of the leading practices that we see that really do help companies to move forward with their disability inclusion strategies. We also do a tracker webinar, results webinar, that will be sometime in May. We will schedule that soon. We're just backing into that date now as far as the timeline is concerned for the actual tracker completion and when that information will be available with our partner, who is Org Vitality, that we work on for the tracker. Is my company's data confidential and only shared in the aggregate? The answer to that question is yes. We will, as I said, schedule a tracker follow-up call with you and other team members if you'd like to go through your data as far as your own data is concerned. But as far as results, everything is just shared in aggregate, and no companies are called out unless we have specifically received permission to do that. Now, I would like to point out that if you are a Corporate Leadership Council member, you do receive additional time with us. We will schedule time with you and other senior leaders or other cross-functional team members to go through the tracker results to really help you from a planning perspective. So if you're a Corporate Leadership Council member, please take advantage of that this year. Give your relationship manager a call, and we'll be happy to schedule that for you. It is 1:30, and we are out of time. For the rest of the questions, we will be sure to answer these questions and get them back out to those of you that have registered for the webinar. So thank you so much. Appreciate your time and attendance, and we certainly hope that you will log in and complete the tracker today.
Thank you, Felicia. And everyone, this concludes today's National Organization on Disability webinar. Thank you for attending.
The moderator has ended the conference. Goodbye. Thank you for calling.